8-year-old Emma Rose Hartley pressed her face against the frosted wagon canvas and watched her stepmother's hands tighten around the reins. They'd stopped moving, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of winter. And stepmother Judith's eyes held that look, the one that meant Emma had finally become too much trouble to keep alive. If you want to see how a broken child and a grieving rancher saved each other, subscribe now and watch until the very end. Comment your city so I can see how far Emma's story travels across the world. The wagon lurched to a stop. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Through the gap in the canvas, she could see nothing but white snow covering the Montana prairie in every direction, stretching toward mountains that looked like broken teeth against a gray December sky. The year was 1873, and the cold out there could kill a grown man in hours. It would kill a child faster. "Get out!" Judith Hartley's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She didn't turn around. Didn't look back. Just sat on that driver's bench with her shoulders rigid and her black morning dress blending into the shadows. Emma clutched her rag doll tighter. The doll's name was Molly, and she was missing one button eye. Mama had made her before the fever took her 4 years ago. Before Papa married Judith. Before everything turned dark. "I said get out, girl." But there's nothing here." Emma's voice came out small, barely a whisper. "No town, no people. It's just snow." Exactly. Judith finally turned, and Emma saw her stepmother's face clearly in the weak winter light. 32 years old, but looking 50. Hard lines around her mouth. Eyes like chips of flint. This woman had never wanted Emma. Had tolerated her only as long as Papa was alive to insist. Papa had been dead 3 weeks now. Pneumonia had taken him fast. And now Judith was done pretending. "You've eaten my food and taken up my space for the last time," Judith said. Her breath came out in white clouds. "Your father left me nothing but debts and you. Well, I'm settling both. The debts are paid, and you're leaving." "Please." Emma scrambled toward the back of the wagon, her worn shoes sliding on the wooden boards. "Please, I'll be good. I'll work harder. I won't eat much, I promise." "Your promises are worth as much as your father's were. Nothing." Judith climbed down from the driver's seat and moved to the back of the wagon. "Out. Now." Emma's whole body started shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. Not yet. "You can't leave me here. I'll die." "That ain't my problem." Judith's hand shot out and grabbed Emma's thin arm, yanking her toward the edge of the wagon. Emma tried to hold on to the sideboard, but her fingers were too small, too weak. She tumbled out and landed hard in the snow, the impact knocking the air from her lungs. Molly fell a few feet away, her yarn hair spread across the white ground. "No?" Emma gasped, reaching for the doll. Judith threw a small bundle after her. It hit the snow with a soft thump. Emma's other dress, the one with the patched elbows and a tin cup. That was it. That was everything she owned in the world. "There. Can't say I didn't give you nothing." Emma pushed herself to her knees. The snow soaked through her dress, immediately icy water seeping into her skin. "Please, Mama Judith, please don't do this." "Don't you call me that?" Judith's face twisted with disgust. "I ain't your mama. Never was, never wanted to be. Your real mama was a fool who married beneath her station, and you're just another fool following in her footsteps." "I'm 8 years old." Emma's voice broke. "I'm just 8 years old." "Old enough to figure out how to survive or not. Either way, I'm done." Judith climbed back onto the wagon seat. The 2 horses stamped their feet, their breath steaming in the cold air. They were ready to go, ready to leave this place and the small girl kneeling in the snow. Emma struggled to her feet, her legs wobbling beneath her. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Anywhere that ain't with me." "But I don't know where I am. I don't know which way to walk." "Figure it out." Judith gathered the reins. "Or don't. Makes no difference to me." Emma ran forward, her bare feet already going numb in the snow. She'd lost her shoes 2 days ago when they wore through completely, and Judith had refused to buy new ones. "Please, I'll die out here, please." "You should have thought of that before your daddy went and died on me." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. Before Daddy died. As if it was his fault. As if Emma had any control over the pneumonia that had filled his lungs and stopped his heart. "Daddy loved you," Emma whispered. "He married you. He tried to make you happy. Your daddy was a worthless dreamer who promised me a good life and delivered nothing but poverty and disappointment." Judith's voice was flat, emotionless. "He lied about everything. His prospects, his connections, his money, all of it lies. And then he had the nerve to die and leave me with you. I didn't ask to be born." "No, but you're here anyway, and I'm done paying for your father's mistakes." Judith cracked the whip over the horses' backs. The animals lurched forward, the wagon wheels creaking as they started to turn. "No!" Emma ran after the wagon, her numb feet stumbling through the deep snow. "Don't leave me. Please, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for whatever I did. Please come back." But Judith didn't come back. The wagon pulled away, moving faster now as the horses found their rhythm. Within seconds, it was 10 yards away, then 20, then 50. Emma kept running, her lungs burning as she sucked in the freezing air. "Mama Judith, please." The word mama died in the empty prairie, because Judith Hartley had never been her mama, would never be, and the woman didn't even look back, didn't hesitate, didn't slow down, just kept driving the wagon, growing smaller and smaller, until it disappeared over a rise in the endless white landscape. And then Emma was alone, completely, utterly alone. She stopped running and stood there, her whole body shaking violently now. The wind had picked up, cutting through her thin dress like knives. Her feet were white and numb. Her fingers couldn't feel the doll she was clutching. The sky overhead was getting darker. Evening was coming, and with it, temperatures that would drop below zero. Emma looked around desperately, searching for anything. A house, a barn, a cave, a tree, anything that might provide shelter. But there was nothing. Just snow and prairie grass poking through in patches, and those distant mountains that might as well have been on the moon for all the good they did her. She was going to die here. The knowledge settled over her like a heavy blanket. She was going to freeze to death in the snow, and no one would ever find her. Judith would tell people she'd run away, or gotten lost. Or maybe Judith wouldn't tell anyone anything. Maybe she'd just disappear into whatever new life she was planning, and Emma would simply cease to exist. "Mama," Emma whispered, thinking of her real mother. The one with gentle hands and a soft voice. The one who'd sung lullabies and made rag dolls and promised Emma that everything would be all right. That Mama had been wrong. Everything wasn't all right. Everything was terrible and cold and ending. Emma's legs gave out and she sank into the snow, pulling Molly against her chest. The doll's remaining button eyes stared up at her, and Emma thought about how lonely Molly must have been all these years with just one eye. Half blind, seeing only half the world. "I'm sorry, Molly," she whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't take better care of you." The wind howled across the prairie, and Emma curled into a ball, trying to make herself as small as possible. Maybe if she was small enough, the cold wouldn't find her. Maybe if she held Molly tight enough, the doll's imaginary warmth would be enough. She knew it wouldn't be. But she tried anyway. Because what else could an 8-year-old girl do when the whole world had abandoned her? So, high on the ridge overlooking the valley, Nathaniel Cross sat astride his black stallion and stared at nothing. 43 years old. Wealthiest rancher in the Montana Territory. Owner of the Silver Creek Ranch, 20,000 acres of prime grazing land, 3,000 head of cattle, the finest horses between here and Denver. And none of it meant a damn thing. Nathaniel raised his brass spyglass and scanned the prairie below, more from habit than interest. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. Beautiful. Empty. Like everything else in his life. His foreman Jack Coleman had asked him this morning why he rode up here so often. Nathaniel hadn't answered. Couldn't explain that sometimes the emptiness of the prairie matched the emptiness inside him, and there was a strange comfort in that. 10 years ago, his wife Rebecca had died in childbirth. The baby, a daughter they'd named Sarah, had lived only 2 hours, long enough for Nathaniel to hold her, long enough to count her fingers and toes and memorize her tiny face, long enough to love her with every fiber of his being. And then she'd stopped breathing. They were buried together on the hill behind the ranch house, beneath a white oak tree Rebecca had planted when they'd first built the house. Nathaniel visited the graves every Sunday, sometimes twice a week when the loneliness got too heavy. He'd built the ranch for Rebecca, for the family they were going to have, 6 bedrooms in that house, and he'd slept in only one for the past decade. The nursery was still there, still painted the soft yellow Rebecca had chosen. Nathaniel couldn't go in, couldn't even look at the closed door without feeling like something in his chest was tearing open. His housekeeper, Catherine Martinez, kept the house running. His foreman kept the ranch profitable, and Nathaniel just existed, going through the motions, breathing without living. He lowered the spyglass and started to turn his horse toward home. Another evening ahead, another silent dinner, another night in a bed that felt too big. Then something caught his eye, a small dark spot against the white snow, maybe half a mile away. At first, Nathaniel thought it was a rock or a bush, but then the spot moved, just slightly, a weak, trembling movement that didn't look like any animal he'd ever seen. He raised the spyglass again and focused on the spot. His heart stopped. It was a child, a little girl curled in the snow, barely moving. Dark hair spread across the white ground, a thin dress that was completely inadequate for this weather. And even from this distance, Nathaniel could see she was alone. No wagon, no adults, no shelter anywhere near her. Christ! The word came out as a prayer and a curse. Nathaniel wheeled his horse around and sent the stallion plunging down the ridge at a dangerous speed. Snow flew up from the horse's hooves as they descended the steep slope. Nathaniel didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. A child alone in the snow in December meant only one thing: death. And it would come soon. The stallion's powerful legs ate up the distance, but it still felt like forever. Every second that passed was a second the child was freezing, dying. As he got closer, Nathaniel could see her more clearly. Small. So small. Maybe 8 or 9 years old. She wasn't moving anymore. "Hold on," Nathaniel said, though she couldn't possibly hear him. "Just hold on." He reached her in less than 5 minutes, but it felt like 5 hours. Nathaniel dismounted before the horse had fully stopped stumbling through the deep snow to reach the small figure. She was curled in a tight ball, clutching a rag doll to her chest. Her lips were blue. Her skin was white. Her eyes were closed. "No." Nathaniel dropped to his knees beside her and pulled off his heavy coat. "No, no, no. Don't you dare die on me, little one." He wrapped the coat around her and lifted her into his arms. She was so light it terrified him, like she was made of bird bones and air. He could feel how cold she was even through his shirt. "Can you hear me?" He cradled her against his chest, trying to share his body heat. "Hey. Open your eyes. Look at me." Nothing. She was completely limp in his arms. Nathaniel pressed his fingers to her throat, searching for a pulse. For a long, horrible moment, he felt nothing. Then there. Faint and thready, but there. She was alive, barely. All right, we're getting you out of here." Nathaniel stood holding the child carefully and looked around for her people. There had to be someone. A wagon, a camp, something. But there was nothing. Just his horse and the endless snow and the small girl who was dying in his arms. In the snow near where she'd been lying, Nathaniel spotted a small bundle. He bent awkwardly and grabbed at a dress and a tin cup. That was it. No food, no blanket, no supplies. Someone had left her here. abandoned her with nothing. The fury that blazed through Nathaniel was so intense, it made his vision go white for a moment. What kind of monster left a child to freeze to death? What kind of devil looked at this small, helpless creature and decided she wasn't worth saving? The girl stirred slightly in his arms, a soft whimper escaping her blue lips. "Shh, I've got you." Nathaniel adjusted his hold, making sure the coat covered her completely. "You're safe now. I promise you're safe." He managed to mount his horse while holding her, settling her across his lap. The stallion, well-trained and steady, stood perfectly still during the awkward maneuver. "Home midnight, fast as you can without dropping us." The horse responded immediately, turning toward the ranch and breaking into a smooth canter. Not his fastest gait, but quick enough. Nathaniel kept one arm wrapped tightly around the child, holding her against his chest, where his body heat might reach her. As they rode, he looked down at her face. Even half frozen and dying, he could see she'd be pretty when she grew up. Dark lashes against pale cheeks, a small pointed chin, delicate features that reminded him painfully of Sarah. Of the daughter who'd never gotten the chance to grow up. The girl's eyes flickered open briefly, unfocused and glazed. "Please," she whispered the word barely audible. "Please don't hurt me." The fact that those were her first words, that she expected pain even from someone trying to save her, made Nathaniel's throat close up. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. "Never. You have my word." Her eyes closed again, but her hand moved slightly, clutching at his shirt. "That's right. Hold on, just a little longer." The ranch came into view as they crested the final rise. The main house sprawled across the valley floor, all 6 bedrooms and wraparound porches, and the white oak tree on the hill behind it. Lights glowed in the windows. Smoke rose from the chimneys. It looked warm, safe. Nathaniel had built this place to be a home, and for 10 years it had been nothing but an empty shell. A monument to loss. Maybe tonight that would change. He rode straight up to the front porch and shouted before he'd even dismounted. "Catherine, Jack, someone get out here now." The front door flew open, and Catherine appeared, a small woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and sharp dark eyes. She took one look at the bundle in Nathaniel's arms and ran down the steps. "Dios mío, is that a child?" "Found her on the prairie. She's half frozen." Nathaniel dismounted carefully, still holding the girl. "I need hot water blankets and whatever remedies you've got for hypothermia." Jack Coleman came running from the barn, his weathered face creasing with concern. "Boss? What's going on?" "Take Midnight. Rub him down, feed him double grain. He just saved a life." Jack grabbed the horse's reins without question, but his eyes were on the small figure in Nathaniel's arms. "Where'd she come from?" "Don't know yet. I'll explain later." Nathaniel carried the girl inside, Catherine hurrying ahead to open doors. The warmth of the house hit him immediately, and he felt the child stir slightly in response. "Upstairs," Catherine said. "The blue guest room. I'll heat water." But as they passed the closed door of the nursery, Nathaniel stopped. 10 years. For 10 years, he hadn't been able to open that door. Hadn't been able to face the yellow walls, and the empty crib, and all the dreams that had died with his daughter. Now holding another man's dying daughter in his arms, something shifted in his chest. "No," he said quietly. "The nursery." Catherine's eyes widened. "Senor Nathaniel." "The nursery, Catherine. It's time." He shifted the girl in his arms and opened the door himself. The room was exactly as Rebecca had left it. Yellow walls, white lace curtains, a rocking chair in the corner. The crib still made up with blankets embroidered with flowers. Everything waiting for a baby who would never come home. Nathaniel carried the child to the bed in the corner, the one he'd bought for when Sarah got older. He laid her down gently and started unwrapping her from his coat. Catherine appeared with an armful of quilts. "This is dangerous, senor. She could die, in this room, and then at least she won't die alone in the snow." Nathaniel pulled off the child's wet shoes, no, not shoes. She was barefoot. In December. In Montana. God help whoever did this to her. They worked together, Catherine, with the efficiency of a woman who'd raised 6 children of her own. They stripped off the wet dress and wrapped the girl in heated blankets. Catherine brought warm, not hot water, and they used cloths to gently warm her hands and feet. Frostbite on her toes, Catherine murmured. Not terrible, but she'll be in pain when the feeling comes back. The girl's eyes opened again, more focused this time. She looked around the unfamiliar room with growing panic. Easy, Nathaniel said, sitting on the edge of the bed. You're safe. You're in my house. No one's going to hurt you. Where? Her voice cracked. Where am I? Silver Creek Ranch. I'm Nathaniel Cross. I found you on the prairie. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She really left me. I hoped maybe she'd come back. But she really left me to die. Who left you? My stepmother, Judith. The tears spilled over, running down her pale cheeks. My papa died, and she didn't want me anymore. She said I was dead weight. Nathaniel felt that white-hot fury again, but he kept his voice gentle. What's your name, sweetheart? Emma Rose Hartley. She clutched the rag doll tighter. And this is Molly. My real mama made her before she died. Well, Miss Emma Rose, I'm very glad to meet you, and Molly too. Nathaniel gestured to Catherine. This is Mrs. Martinez. She's going to take good care of you. Are you going to send me away? Emma's voice was small, terrified. To an orphanage, or somewhere? The question hit Nathaniel in the chest like a bullet. This child had been abandoned once already. Of course she'd be terrified it would happen again. No, he said firmly. I'm not sending you anywhere. You're staying right here until you're well. And then... He paused, unsure what to promise. And then we'll figure things out. Together. All right. Emma searched his face, looking for the lie. Looking for the cruelty she'd learned to expect from adults. Whatever she saw must have reassured her because she nodded slightly. All right. Good. Now Mrs. Martinez is going to bring you some warm soup. Think you can eat a little? I haven't eaten in 2 days. Emma's stomach growled, as if to emphasize the point. Judith said I didn't deserve food until I learned to be grateful for what I had. Nathaniel stood abruptly, needing to move before he said something that would frighten the child. Catherine, soup. And bread if we have it. Broth first, then something more substantial if she keeps it down. Si, senor. Catherine touched his arm gently. You did a good thing today. After she left, Nathaniel pulled the rocking chair over to the bedside and sat down. Emma watched him warily, still clutching her doll. Where's your papa buried, Emma? I don't know. Her voice broke. Somewhere on the trail. Judith wouldn't tell me where. She said it didn't matter because he was gone, and that was that. And your mother? Your real mother. Missouri. 4 years ago. She got the fever and just... Emma's small hand made a gesture like a candle being snuffed out. Papa said we needed a fresh start, so he married Judith and we headed west. But Judith never wanted me. She only wanted Papa, and when he died, she was done pretending. Nathaniel thought about Rebecca, about how she would have loved this child, would have gathered Emma into her arms and promised her safety and love and a future. He couldn't do what Rebecca would have done, couldn't fill that role. But he could do this. He could make sure Emma Rose Hartley never spent another night freezing and alone. He could give her safety, warmth, food, a chance to heal. It wasn't love, not the kind a child deserved from a parent. But it was something, and something was better than the nothing Judith had left her with. Emma, he said quietly, I want you to listen to me carefully. Can you do that? She nodded. You're going to stay here, in this house, for as long as you need. You'll have your own room, this room if you like it. You'll have food and clothes and anything else you need. And I promise you, I swear on my wife's grave, no one will abandon you again. Do you understand? Emma's eyes searched his face again. Why? Why what? Why would you help me? You don't know me. I'm nobody. I don't have any money. I can't. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I can't pay you back. Nathaniel leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Because 10 years ago, I had a daughter. She lived for 2 hours. And if she'd survived, if she'd lived and somehow ended up lost and freezing, I'd want someone to save her. I'd want someone to give her a chance. He reached out slowly, giving Emma time to pull away, and touched her small hand. You remind me of her, of what she might have been. And I'll be damned if I let you die when I have the power to save you. Emma's tears came harder now, but they weren't scared tears anymore. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. Catherine returned with a tray, and they coaxed Emma into eating small spoonfuls of warm broth. She kept it down, and after a few minutes Catherine brought bread soaked in butter. Emma ate that too slowly, carefully, like she was afraid it might disappear. When she'd eaten as much as her shrunken stomach could handle, Emma's eyes started to droop. The warmth and food and safety were overwhelming after days of cold and fear. Sleep, Nathaniel said gently. You're safe here. I'll be right downstairs if you need anything. Don't leave. Emma's hand shot out, grabbing his sleeve. Please don't leave me alone. Nathaniel looked at Catherine, who nodded and quietly left the room. All right, I'll stay until you fall asleep. He settled back in the rocking chair and started to rock the way he'd imagined doing with Sarah. Emma watched him through heavy-lidded eyes, fighting sleep, even though she desperately needed it. Mr. Cross. Yes, Emma. Do you think... She hesitated. Do you think my real mama would be happy I found you? Nathaniel's throat went tight. I think your real mama would be grateful that you're safe, that you're warm and fed and not alone anymore. I miss her. I know, sweetheart. I miss my Rebecca too. Does it ever stop hurting? Nathaniel thought about the question. About 10 years of grief that still felt fresh sometimes. No, he said honestly, but it gets easier to carry. And having people around who care about you, that helps. Emma's eyes finally closed. Will you care about me, even though I'm not really yours? The question hung in the air like snow waiting to fall. Nathaniel looked at this small girl who'd been thrown away like trash, who'd been abandoned and starved and left to freeze, who'd somehow survived long enough for him to find her. And he thought about the nursery that had been empty for 10 years, about the house that echoed with loneliness, about the life he'd been living, existing without purpose or joy or hope. Yes, he said quietly. I'll care about you, Emma Rose, starting right now. She smiled slightly, already mostly asleep. Good, because I think I could care about you too, Mr. Cross. And then she was out her breathing evening into the deep rhythm of exhausted sleep. Nathaniel sat in the rocking chair and watched her, this small stranger who'd landed in his life like a meteor. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the prairie in white silence. But here in this room, in this house, something had shifted. The emptiness didn't feel quite so vast anymore. And for the first time in 10 years, Nathaniel Cross felt something other than grief. He felt needed. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains and the smell of bacon frying somewhere below. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back in Missouri, in the little house where Mama used to sing while cooking breakfast. Then reality crashed back, and she bolted upright, her heart hammering. The yellow room, the quilts, Mr. Cross. It hadn't been a dream. Her feet throbbed with a burning, tingling pain that made her gasp. The frostbite coming back to life. Emma bit her lip hard, tasting copper, determined not to cry. Crying was weak, and Judith always said weak girls didn't deserve to eat. The door opened, and Catherine appeared carrying a tray. Ah, you're awake. Good. How do you feel? My feet hurt. That's good. Means the blood is flowing again. Catherine set the tray on the bedside table. "Can you wiggle your toes?" Emma tried. Her toes moved, sending fresh waves of pain up her legs. "Yes, ma'am." "Then you'll keep them. I was worried last night." Catherine poured water from a pitcher into a basin. "Now let's get you cleaned up properly. You still have prairie dust in places. Dust has no business being." Emma flinched when Catherine reached for her. The older woman froze. "I'm not going to hurt you, Nina. Just going to wash your face and hands." "All right." Emma nodded slowly, but her whole body stayed tense as Catherine gently cleaned the grime from her skin. The water in the basin turned gray, then brown. When had she last had a proper bath? Weeks, maybe. Judith said soap was wasted on ungrateful children. "There." Catherine smiled. "Now you look less like a wild thing and more like a little girl. Hungry." Emma's stomach growled in response. Catherine laughed and lifted the cover from the tray, revealing eggs, bacon biscuits with butter and jam, and a glass of milk. "I can't eat all that." Emma stared at the food. "That's too much for one person." "You eat what you can. The rest won't go to waste." Catherine helped Emma sit up against the pillows. "Mr. Cross said you're to have whatever you want. No limits." "Why?" The word came out sharper than Emma intended. "Why is he being nice to me?" Catherine's expression softened. "Because he's a good man who's been alone too long. And because sometimes God puts people in each other's paths for a reason." She handed Emma a fork. "Now, eat before it gets cold." Emma ate slowly, waiting for someone to snatch the plate away or tell her she'd had enough. But Catherine just bustled around the room, opening windows to let in fresh air, straightening already straight curtains. Acting like feeding a strange child was the most normal thing in the world. "Mrs. Martinez." "Catherine, please." "Catherine, where's Mr. Cross?" "Out checking the cattle. He'll be back by noon." Catherine paused. "He sat with you all night, you know. Didn't leave until I practically shoved him out at dawn. Said he promised he wouldn't leave you alone." Emma's throat went tight. Papa used to keep his promises too before he died, before everything fell apart. She'd finished half the food when footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door flew open, and a tall, lean man with sun-weathered skin and kind blue eyes appeared. He held his hat in his hands, twisting the brim nervously. "Nate said—" He stopped staring at Emma. "Well, I'll be damned. Pardon my language, ma'am. But Nate said he found a kid, and I thought, well, I don't know what I thought, but it wasn't this." "Jack Coleman." Catherine's voice held a warning. "You're scaring her." "No, ma'am, I'm not trying to. I just—" Jack stepped forward, his weathered face creasing with concern. "You the little girl Nate pulled off the prairie last night?" Emma nodded, clutching Molly tighter. "Your people know where you are." "I don't have people anymore." Emma's voice came out small. "Just me and Molly." Jack's expression darkened. "Someone left you out there on purpose." "My stepmother. She said I was dead weight." "Christ." Jack ran a hand through his gray-streaked hair. "What kind of woman?" He cut himself off, glancing at Catherine. "Sorry. Not my business." "It's everyone's business when a child gets abandoned." Catherine's voice was steel. "And it's our business now because she's here, and she's staying. Damn right she's staying." Jack crouched down beside the bed, his blue eyes level with Emma's. "Listen here, little miss. I've worked for Nate Cross for 15 years, known him since before his wife died. And I'm telling you straight, if he said you're staying, you're staying. That man don't break his word. Ever." "Jack." Nathaniel's voice came from the doorway, quiet but commanding. "That's enough. You're overwhelming her." Jack stood quickly. "Sorry, boss. Just wanted to meet the girl everyone's talking about." "Everyone." Nathaniel stepped into the room, and Emma felt her breath catch. In daylight, he looked different. Taller somehow. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples, and his face had deep lines around his eyes and mouth. But there was something solid about him. Something safe. "The whole ranch crew knows by now," Jack grinned. Catherine told Maria, who told her husband Carlos, who told everyone else. "You can't keep secrets on a ranch, boss. You should know that by now." Nathaniel sighed. "I'm not trying to keep secrets. Emma, how are you feeling this morning?" "My feet hurt." "That's good. Means they're healing." Nathaniel moved closer, his movements careful and unhurried, like he was approaching a spooked horse. "May I look?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. Nathaniel sat on the edge of the bed and gently lifted the quilts to examine her feet. His touch was so careful, it made Emma's chest ache. Papa used to be gentle like that before he got sick. "Frostbite's not too bad. You'll keep all your toes." Nathaniel looked up at her. "But you need proper boots. Catherine, can you get measurements? I'll have Jack ride to town this afternoon." "I don't have money for boots." Emma's voice shook. "I can't pay you back." "I'm not asking you to pay me back." "But Judith said people don't give things for free. She said everything has a price." Nathaniel's jaw tightened, and Emma saw that white-hot anger flash in his eyes again. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle. "Your stepmother was wrong about a lot of things. Good people help each other without expecting payment. That's how families work." "We're not family." "Not yet." Nathaniel stood. "But we could be if you wanted. If you're willing to stay long enough to find out." Emma stared at him, her heart hammering. "You want me to stay? Really stay? Not just until you find somewhere else to put me. I want you to stay, Emma Rose, for as long as you'll have me." The words hung in the air like a promise, like a lifeline. Emma wanted to grab onto them with both hands, but fear held her back. What if he changed his mind? What if she did something wrong, and he decided she wasn't worth keeping after all? "What if I'm bad?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "What if I make mistakes, or break things, or eat too much? Judith said I was more trouble than I was worth. What if you decide that too?" Nathaniel knelt beside the bed, so they were eye to eye. "Emma, listen to me. I'm 43 years old. I've run this ranch for 20 years. I've survived winters that killed cattle by the hundreds, droughts that dried up creeks, and business partners who tried to cheat me blind. You know what I learned?" Emma shook her head. "That the only thing worth a damn in this world is people. Real people who show up and try their best, and don't give up when things get hard." He touched her hand lightly. "You survived being abandoned in a Montana winter. You fought to stay alive when most adults would have just laid down and died. That tells me everything I need to know about your worth. But I'm just a kid. You're a fighter, and I could use a fighter around here." Nathaniel smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "So, what do you say? Want to give this a try?" Emma looked at Catherine, who nodded encouragingly. At Jack, who was grinning like he'd just won a bet. At Molly, whose one button eye seemed to stare at her expectantly. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try." "Good." Nathaniel stood and gestured to Jack. "Get those measurements to town. I want boots, 3 dresses, underclothings, and a proper winter coat. Spare no expense." "Boss, that's gonna cost—" "I said spare no expense." Nathaniel's voice left no room for argument. "And Jack, make sure the dresses are blue. Emma looks good in blue." After Jack left, Catherine shooed Nathaniel out so she could help Emma with her bath. The tub was enormous, filled with hot water that made Emma's skin tingle. Catherine washed her hair 3 times before the water ran clear, then helped her into a borrowed nightgown that hung to her ankles. "We'll fix the fit once your new clothes arrive," Catherine said, rolling up the sleeves. "For now, this will do." Emma touched the soft fabric. "This is yours." "Was my daughter's, Rosa. She's grown now, living in Denver with a husband and 2 babies. Catherine's expression turned wistful. But she was about your size when she was 8. I saved some of her things. Seemed wasteful to throw them out. Thank you for letting me use them. You're welcome, Nina. Catherine helped Emma back to bed. Now rest. Your body's been through a trauma. It needs time to heal. But Emma couldn't rest. Her mind kept spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Yesterday she'd been dying in the snow, certain she'd never see another sunrise. Today, she was in a soft bed in a warm house with people who wanted her to stay. It felt like a dream. And Emma was terrified she'd wake up. The door opened again, and Nathaniel appeared carrying a wooden box. Thought you might like something to do besides stare at the ceiling. He set the box on the bed and opened it. Inside were books, not 1 or 2, but dozens. Emma's eyes went wide. You like to read. Mama taught me before she died. But we didn't have many books. Emma touched the nearest spine reverently. Judith threw mine away, said reading was a waste of time that could be spent working. Your stepmother, Nathaniel said carefully, was an idiot. Emma giggled despite herself, then clapped a hand over her mouth. Judith said girls who giggled were common. What's funny? You called her an idiot. Because that's what she is. Anyone who throws away books is too stupid to deserve them. Nathaniel pulled out a volume. This was Rebecca's favorite. Wuthering Heights. Ever heard of it? Emma shook her head. It's about love and loss, and people making terrible decisions. Nathaniel's expression turned distant. Rebecca used to read it every winter, said the moors reminded her of the prairie. Was she nice? Your wife? The best person I ever knew. Nathaniel's voice went rough. She would have loved you. Would have probably had you baking cookies within an hour of meeting you. I don't know how to bake. Catherine will teach you, if you want to learn. Emma looked at the books at this man who kept giving her things without asking for anything in return at the yellow room that felt like safety made solid. Mr. Cross. You can call me Nathaniel, or Nate if you prefer. Nathaniel. Emma tested the name. Why did you open this room? Catherine said it's been closed for 10 years. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. Because I built it for my daughter, and she never got to use it. Seemed wrong to let it stay empty when there was a child who needed it. But doesn't it make you sad? Being in here? Yes. Nathaniel's honesty startled her. But it also feels right. Like maybe this is what the room was waiting for all along. Emma pulled Molly close. I'll take good care of it, I promise. I know you will, sweetheart. The word sweetheart made Emma's eyes burn with tears she refused to shed. Papa used to call her that, before Judith, before everything went wrong. Can I ask you something? Emma's voice shook. And will you tell me the truth? Always. Are you going to send me to an orphanage when I'm better, and not so much trouble? Nathaniel crossed to the bed and sat down beside her. Emma rose heartily. Look at me. She looked up, her vision blurred with unshed tears. I am not sending you anywhere. Not to an orphanage, not to relatives, nowhere. You're staying here, in this house, in this room, for as long as you want. Do you understand? But what if the law says, then I'll fight the law. I'll hire lawyers and go to court and do whatever it takes. Nathaniel's voice was fierce. You're mine now. I claimed you the moment I picked you up off that prairie, and I don't give up what's mine. The tears spilled over, then hot and fast. Emma couldn't stop them. Didn't want to, because for the first time since Papa died, someone wanted her. Really wanted her. Not as a burden or an obligation, but as a person worth keeping. Hey, hey! Nathaniel pulled her into his arms, careful of her sore feet. It's all right. You're safe. I've got you. Emma sobbed into his shirt, all the fear and pain and loneliness of the past weeks pouring out. Nathaniel just held her one hand stroking her damp hair, murmuring words that didn't quite make sense, but felt like comfort anyway. When the tears finally stopped, Emma pulled back hiccuping. I'm sorry. I got your shirt all wet. Shirt's dry. You needed to cry. Nathaniel handed her a handkerchief. Feel better? Emma nodded. She did feel better. Lighter somehow. Like crying had washed away some of the weight she'd been carrying. Good. Now Catherine's making lunch. Think you can come downstairs? Or would you rather eat up here? Downstairs. Emma wiped her face. I don't want to be alone. Then downstairs it is. Nathaniel carried her down the wide staircase, and Emma got her first real look at the house. It was huge, bigger than any place she'd ever lived. Dark wood everywhere, thick rugs on polished floors, paintings on the walls. But despite its size, it felt empty, like a house waiting for people to fill it with noise and life. The kitchen was warm and smelled like heaven. Catherine had outdone herself: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh bread. Emma's stomach growled so loudly that Nathaniel laughed. Sounds like someone's ready to eat. He set her in a chair at the long table, and Catherine immediately started piling food on her plate. Emma stared at the mountain of food, then at the adults watching her. What if I can't finish it all? Then you stop when you're full, Nathaniel said. Nobody here's going to force you to clean your plate or punish you for wasting food. Eat what you want. Emma picked up her fork cautiously, still waiting for the catch. But Catherine and Nathaniel just started eating their own meals, talking quietly about ranch business. After a few minutes, Emma relaxed enough to actually taste the food. It was delicious. Better than anything Judith had ever made. Better than anything Emma remembered eating in her entire life. This is really good, she said shyly. Catherine beamed. Thank you, Nina. Tomorrow I'll teach you how to make it yourself if you'd like. Really, you'd teach me? Of course, every girl should know how to cook. Emma ate until her stomach felt like it might burst, then sat back with a contented sigh. Nathaniel and Catherine exchanged glances, and Emma caught something pass between them. Some wordless communication that adults always seem to have. What? Emma asked. Nothing. Nathaniel pushed his empty plate away. Just thinking that it's nice to have someone to eat with again. This house has been too quiet for too long. How long? 10 years. Since Rebecca died. Emma thought about that. 10 years of eating alone in this big house. 10 years of empty rooms and silence. It sounded awful. Were you lonely? Nathaniel's expression turned surprised, like no one had ever asked him that before. Yes, he said finally. Very lonely. Me too. After Mama died and Papa married Judith, I was lonely even when there were people around. Emma picked at her napkin. Is that weird? No, sweetheart. That's not weird at all. Nathaniel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But maybe we don't have to be lonely anymore. Either of us. Before Emma could respond, the front door banged open and Jack's voice echoed through the house. Boss, we got a problem. Nathaniel was on his feet instantly. What kind of problem? Jack appeared in the kitchen doorway. His face grim. Ryder just came from town. There's a woman there asking questions. Says she's looking for a lost child. 8 years old, dark hair. Left behind on the trail by accident. Emma's blood turned to ice. Judith. That her name? Your stepmother? Jack looked at Nathaniel. Woman staying at the boarding house. Told Sheriff Morrison she's worried sick about her missing stepdaughter. The hell she is. Nathaniel's voice was flat and dangerous. She abandoned Emma to die. Now she's claiming it was an accident. That's what she's telling anyone who'll listen. Jack's expression darkened. And folks are listening, boss. Sheriff's sympathetic. Says the law's on her side, she's the legal guardian. Emma felt the world tilting. Judith was here. Judith had come back. And she was going to take Emma away from this warm house and these kind people and drag her back to cold and hunger and pain. No. The word came out as a whisper. No, please, I can't go back to her. Please. Nathaniel crouched beside Emma's chair. You're not going anywhere. I promised you that. But the sheriff said, I don't care what the sheriff said. You're staying here. Nathaniel's voice was steel. Jack saddled 2 horses. I'm going to town. Boss, maybe that's not... Now, Jack. Jack nodded and disappeared. Catherine moved to Emma's side, her hand gentle on Emma's shoulder. It's going to be all right, Nina. How? Emma's voice cracked. How is it going to be all right? She's my legal guardian. The sheriff said so. She can make me go with her. Not if I have anything to say about it. Nathaniel stood and grabbed his coat from the hook by the door. Catherine, keep Emma inside. Don't let anyone on this property without my say-so. You're going to fight her. Emma couldn't believe it. Adults didn't fight for children. They traded them and abandoned them and forgot about them. They didn't stand up to the law. Nathaniel knelt again and took both of Emma's hands in his. Emma rose. I made you a promise. I said you were staying here and I meant it. Your stepmother left you to die. I don't care what the law says, she forfeited her rights the moment she drove away. And I will fight her with everything I have to keep you safe. But what if you can't? What if she wins? Something fierce and protective blazed in Nathaniel's eyes. Then she'll have to go through me first. And I promise you, sweetheart, I don't go down easy. He kissed Emma's forehead the first time anyone had done that since Mama died and strode out of the kitchen. Emma heard his boots on the porch, then the sound of horses being brought around. Catherine pulled Emma into her arms. He means it, you know. When Nathaniel Cross makes a promise, heaven and hell couldn't make him break it. But Judith's my legal guardian. Doesn't that mean... It means we have a fight ahead, but we're not giving up. Catherine's voice was firm. You're part of this family now, and we protect our own. Emma wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that Nathaniel could actually stand between her and Judith's cruelty. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it true. All she could do was wait and hope that this time, just this once, the good people would win. Nathaniel rode into town with Jack beside him, and fury burning in his chest like hot coals. The main street was quiet, just a few wagons outside the general store and some horses tied at the saloon. But Nathaniel could feel eyes watching from windows as they passed. Small towns were like that. Everyone knew everyone's business before it even happened. Where is she? Nathaniel's voice was tight. Boarding house, last I heard. Jack gestured toward the 2-story building at the end of the street. Boss, you need to think about this. Going in hot won't help. I'm not letting that woman anywhere near Emma. I know, but Sheriff Morrison's already involved. You can't just... Nathaniel dismounted and tied his horse to the rail outside the sheriff's office. Watch my back. Jack sighed, but followed him inside. Sheriff Tom Morrison looked up from his desk, his weathered face creasing with what might have been sympathy or concern. Hard to tell with Morrison. Nate, figured you'd show up sooner or later. Where is she? Mrs. Hartley's at the boarding house like I told Jack. She came in this morning worried sick about her missing stepdaughter. Morrison stood slowly. Says the girl ran off 3 days ago while they were stopped for the night. Been searching ever since. That's a lie. You got proof of that. Nathaniel's hands clenched into fists. I've got the girl. Found her yesterday, half frozen and abandoned on the prairie. She told me everything, how her stepmother drove her out there and left her to die. Morrison's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation, Nate. Real serious. You're saying Mrs. Hartley tried to murder a child? I'm saying she left an 8-year-old girl barefoot in the snow in December. What would you call it? I'd call it your word against hers. Morrison moved around the desk. And legally speaking, Mrs. Hartley's the girl's guardian. Her late husband's widow. That gives her rights. Rights. Nathaniel's voice rose. She has no rights to a child she tried to kill. You keep saying that, but all I've got is what a scared little girl told you. Kids lie, Nate. They run away and get lost and make up stories to avoid punishment. Emma's not lying. Maybe not, but maybe she is. Morrison pulled out a piece of paper. Mrs. Hartley filed a formal complaint this morning. Says she wants her stepdaughter returned immediately, and unless you've got hard evidence of abuse or abandonment, I'm bound by law to. The door banged open, and a woman swept in, all righteous indignation and false tears. Judith Hartley was thin and hard-looking, with a pinched mouth and cold eyes that didn't match her sobbing. Behind her stood a thick-set man with a mean expression. Sheriff, thank God. Judith pressed a handkerchief to her face. Is it true? Has someone found my Emma? Nathaniel turned slowly, and every ounce of contempt he felt showed on his face. Your Emma. You don't get to call her that, not after what you did. Judith's eyes narrowed, and for just a second the mask slipped. Nathaniel saw the cruelty underneath the calculation. Then she was sobbing again, louder this time. I don't know what lies that child has been telling, but I've been frantic with worry. She ran off in the middle of the night, and I've been searching ever since. Judith turned to Morrison. Please, Sheriff, I just want my little girl back. She's not your little girl. Nathaniel stepped forward, and Jack put a warning hand on his arm. You left her to die. I found her barefoot and freezing, wearing nothing but a torn dress. You want to explain that? She must have lost her shoes while running. Judith didn't miss a beat. The child's always been difficult, Mr. I'm sorry I don't know your name. Nathaniel Cross. Recognition flickered in Judith's eyes. Everyone in the territory knew the Cross name, knew the wealth behind it. Mr. Cross, I'm sure you mean well, but Emma's a troubled child, prone to dramatics and lying. Her poor father spoiled her terribly before he passed. Is that why you beat her? Judith's face went white, then red. I never, how dare you? Emma has bruises, old ones, and scars on her back that didn't come from running through the woods. Nathaniel's voice was ice. Want to explain those? The thick-set man behind Judith stepped forward. You calling my wife a liar? Your wife? Nathaniel looked between them. How long you been married, Mrs. Hartley? Your husband's been dead, 3 weeks? Judith's hand flew to her throat. Mr. Blake and I, we were married 2 days ago. A widow needs protection in this harsh territory. A widow needs money, Nathaniel corrected. And Emma was in the way of you getting it, so you dumped her on the prairie and moved on with your new husband. That's slander. Cyrus Blake's hand moved toward his gun. You take that back or... Jack's rifle appeared in his hand so fast it seemed like magic. The barrel pointed steady at Blake's chest. Or what? You gonna draw on an unarmed man in front of the sheriff? Go ahead and try. Everyone calm down. Morrison moved between them. There'll be no shooting in my office. Blake, step back. Jack, lower that rifle. Jack didn't move. Neither did his rifle. Morrison sighed. Nate, I understand you're upset, but Mrs. Blake here has legal custody. Unless you can prove she abandoned the child, and I mean prove, not just take Emma's word, I have to side with the law. The law. Nathaniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. The law says a woman can marry days after her husband dies, then get rid of his daughter like unwanted baggage. The law says blood relatives come first. Morrison's voice was tired. I don't like it any more than you do, but that's how it is. Judith saw her opening and pressed. I just want my stepdaughter back, Sheriff. Surely that's not too much to ask. You're not getting her. Nathaniel's voice was flat and final. Mr. Cross, you can't just keep someone else's child. Watch me. Morrison's expression hardened. Nate, don't make this difficult. I've known you 15 years. You're a good man. But if you refuse to return the girl, I'll have to arrest you for kidnapping. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Jack lowered his rifle slightly. Boss, maybe we should... No. Nathaniel didn't take his eyes off Judith. You want Emma? You'll have to go through me, and I promise you that won't be easy. Mr. Cross. Judith's voice turned sweet poisonous. I understand you've grown attached, but Emma belongs with family. I'm all she has left in this world. She has me. You're a stranger. We're blood. Blood didn't stop you from leaving her to freeze. Judith's mask cracked again. You have no proof of that. It's her word against mine, and she's a child. A lying, ungrateful child who never appreciated anything I did for her. There it was, the truth slipping through. Nathaniel saw Morrison's expression shift slightly, caught the doubt creeping in. Sheriff, I want to file a formal petition for custody, Nathaniel said. Legal and proper. Let a judge decide. On what grounds? Abuse, abandonment, attempted murder. Judith laughed high and sharp. Ridiculous. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? Nathaniel pulled a folded paper from his coat. I took Emma to Doc Henderson this morning before riding to town. He documented every bruise, every scar, every sign of malnutrition and abuse. It's all here. Written testimony from a licensed physician. Judith's face went pale. That doesn't prove It proves someone hurt her. Repeatedly. Over a long period of time. Nathaniel handed the document to Morrison. And I've got Emma's testimony. Detailed accounts of the beatings, the starvation, the day you drove her out to the middle of nowhere and left her. Morrison scanned the document, his expression growing darker with each line. This is pretty damning, Mrs. Blake. It's lies. All of it. But Judith's voice had lost its confident edge. Doc Henderson doesn't lie. Morrison set the paper down. And these injuries, they're consistent with what Nate's saying. The child's clumsy. She falls. She has switch marks on her back, Nathaniel said quietly. In a pattern. Someone beat her. Methodically. Cyrus Blake grabbed Judith's arm. We don't have to stand here and listen to this. We have rights. The girl's legally hers, and... Actually, a new voice interrupted from the doorway. That's not entirely accurate. Everyone turned. A tall man in an expensive suit stood there carrying a leather briefcase. His gray hair was perfectly groomed, and his eyes were sharp behind wire-rimmed spectacles. Who the hell are you? Blake demanded. Benjamin Thornton, attorney at law. Thornton stepped into the office and set his briefcase on Morrison's desk. Mr. Cross retained my services this morning. I've spent the last few hours reviewing territorial law regarding child custody and guardianship. Nathaniel blinked. He hadn't retained anyone, hadn't even thought about lawyers yet. Thornton caught his confused expression and gave a slight smile. Your foreman, Jack Coleman, sent word. Said you might need legal representation. I came as fast as I could. Jack grinned. Couldn't let you fight this alone, boss. Thornton opened his briefcase and pulled out several documents. Now then, Mrs. Blake, you claim legal guardianship based on your marriage to Emma's father, correct? That's right. Judith's voice was wary. And when did Mr. Hartley die? 3 weeks ago. And you remarried 2 days ago. I don't see what that has to do with... It has everything to do with it. Thornton's voice was calm, but sharp. Under territorial law, when a widow remarries, her guardianship of stepchildren from her previous marriage becomes void unless the new husband formally adopts them. Did Mr. Blake adopt Emma? Silence. Cyrus Blake's face went red. We just got married. There wasn't time to... Then legally, Mrs. Blake no longer has guardianship. Thornton looked at Morrison. Which means Emma is effectively an orphan. And under territorial law, any responsible adult can petition for custody of an orphaned child, especially if they can prove the child is in danger from previous caretakers. Morrison leaned back in his chair. That true. I can cite 3 precedents from the past 5 years. Thornton pulled out more papers. The law's clear. Mrs. Blake's remarriage severed her legal connection to Emma. She has no more claim than any stranger on the street. Judith's mouth opened and closed. But that can't be right. She's my stepdaughter. Was your stepdaughter. Past tense. Thornton turned to Nathaniel. Mr. Cross has filed a formal petition for custody. Given his financial stability, his reputation in the community, and the evidence of abuse, I believe any judge would rule in his favor. This is insane. Cyrus Blake's hand went to his gun again. You can't just steal a man's property. Property. Nathaniel's voice went deadly quiet. You just called a child property. Jack's rifle came back up. Say that again, please. Morrison stood quickly. Blake, I strongly suggest you shut your mouth and step outside. Now. But, now. Blake looked at Judith, who was staring at Thornton's papers like they were a death sentence. Judith, come on, we're leaving. But Emma is gone. Blake grabbed her arm roughly. And we're wasting time here. We got what we needed from the wagon. The girl's not worth this trouble. The words hung in the air like smoke. Morrison's eyes narrowed. What did you get from the wagon? Blake realized his mistake too late. Nothing. I meant, you said you got what you needed. What was in that wagon? Judith tried to pull away from Blake's grip. Nothing. Just our belongings. Emma said her father died of pneumonia 3 weeks ago. Nathaniel's mind was racing. What happened to his things? His money? There was no money. We were poor. Then why marry Judith 3 days after her husband died? Nathaniel looked at Blake. What were you after? Morrison moved around his desk. Blake, I'm going to ask you one more time. What was in that wagon? Blake's face went through several expressions: anger, fear, calculation. Finally, he settled on defiance. None of your damn business. It is when it involves abandoning a child. Morrison pulled out a pair of handcuffs. I'm detaining you both for questioning. If I find out you left that girl to die while you ran off with her dead father's belongings. You can't arrest us. Judith's voice went shrill. We haven't done anything wrong. Abandonment's a crime, Mrs. Blake. So's theft if you took property that should have gone to Emma as next of kin. Morrison snapped the cuffs on Blake's wrists. Jack, ride out to where they're camped. Search that wagon. With pleasure, Sheriff. Judith lunged forward, her mask completely gone now. You have no right. That money is mine. I earned it putting up with that worthless man and his brat for 2 years. The room went silent. Morrison stared at her. So there was money. Judith's hand flew to her mouth, but the damage was done. How much? Nathaniel asked quietly. I didn't mean. How much money did Emma's father have? Judith's shoulders slumped. When she spoke again, her voice was bitter and defeated. $5,000. Gold certificates hidden in a false bottom of his trunk. The fool died before he could tell me where the key was. Took me 2 weeks to break it open. $5,000. Nathaniel felt sick. You left a child to die for $5,000. She was in the way. Judith's voice was flat now, all pretense gone. Richard promised me a good life. Promised me money and comfort. Then he died and left me with nothing but debts and that girl. When I found the money, I saw my chance. New start. New husband. No baggage. Baggage. Nathaniel's voice shook with rage. You called a child baggage. What else was she not mine? Not my responsibility. Judith looked at him with empty eyes. You want her so bad, fine. Take her. She's more trouble than she's worth anyway. Morrison grabbed Judith's arm and cuffed her wrists behind her back. You're under arrest for abandonment, attempted murder, and theft. That money belongs to Emma as her father's heir. You can't. I can and I am. Morrison looked at Nathaniel. The money's in the wagon. Probably. If these two haven't spent it already. We'll find it. Morrison hauled Judith toward the door. Blake, you're coming too. Accessory to child abandonment at minimum. This is bullshit. Blake struggled, but Morrison held firm. Save it for the judge. As Morrison dragged them out, Judith twisted back to look at Nathaniel. You think you're saving her? You think you're some kind of hero? She'll disappoint you. Just like her father disappointed me. Just like everyone disappoints everyone. And when she does, you'll wish you'd left her in the snow. Nathaniel met her gaze steadily. I'll take that chance. The door slammed behind them, and suddenly the office was quiet except for the sound of Nathaniel's ragged breathing. Thornton gathered his papers calmly. "Well, that went better than expected." "Better?" Nathaniel stared at him. "How was any of that better?" "She confessed. To everything. In front of witnesses." Thornton smiled. "The custody hearing will be a formality now. No judge in the territory would return Emma to a woman facing criminal charges." The reality of it hit Nathaniel like a wave. Emma was safe. Really, truly safe. Judith would go to prison. The money, Emma's inheritance, would be recovered. And Emma would stay at Silver Creek Ranch. With him. "Thank you," Nathaniel said hoarsely. "I didn't even know Jack sent for you, but thank you." "Thank your foreman." He was very persuasive. Thornton packed his briefcase. "I'll file the formal custody papers tomorrow. Given the circumstances, I expect approval within a week. 2 at most. And Emma, until then, she stays with you. Morrison's a witness to Mrs. Blake's confession. He won't contest temporary custody." Thornton extended his hand. "Congratulations, Mr. Cross. You're about to become a father." The word hit Nathaniel in the chest. Father. He'd been a father once for 2 brief hours, held his daughter's tiny body and felt her stop breathing and wanted to die himself. Now he was getting a second chance, a different daughter, a child who'd survived when his Sarah hadn't, a girl who needed him as much as he'd discovered he needed her. "I don't know how to do this," Nathaniel admitted. "I don't know how to be a father to an 8-year-old girl." Thornton's expression softened. "From what I've seen, you're doing just fine. You fought for her, protected her. That's what fathers do." After Thornton left, Nathaniel stood alone in the sheriff's office and tried to process everything that had happened. An hour ago, he'd been terrified he'd lose Emma before he'd even really had her. Now Judith was in jail. Emma's inheritance was being recovered, and he had legal standing to adopt her. It felt like a miracle. Jack appeared in the doorway. "Boss, you all right?" "I'm going to be a father." "Yeah, you are," Jack grinned. "Congratulations. She's a good kid. You deserve each other." "I hope I don't mess this up." "You won't. You care too much to mess it up." Jack clapped him on the shoulder. "Now come on. Let's go home and tell Emma the good news." They rode back to the ranch as the sun started setting, painting the snow-covered prairie in shades of gold and pink. Nathaniel's mind was already racing ahead. Emma would need proper schooling. More clothes, toys maybe. Did 8-year-old girls play with toys? He had no idea. He'd have to learn. Fast. The ranch came into view, and Nathaniel saw a small figure standing on the porch, wrapped in one of Catherine's shawls. Emma. Watching the road. Waiting for him. The moment she saw him, she ran down the steps barefoot in the snow, and Nathaniel's heart seized. "Emma, your feet." But she didn't stop, just kept running until she crashed into him as he dismounted, throwing her thin arms around his waist. "You came back," she sobbed into his coat. "You came back." "Of course I came back." Nathaniel lifted her into his arms. "I promised I wouldn't leave you, remember? But Judith she's in jail, and she's never getting near you again." Nathaniel carried Emma up the porch steps where Catherine waited with an anxious expression. "It's over, sweetheart. You're safe. You're staying here. Forever." Emma pulled back to look at his face. "Forever? Really, forever?" "Really, forever. I filed papers to adopt you. The lawyer says it'll be official within a week." "Adopt?" Emma's eyes went wide. "You mean you'd be my real father?" "If you'll have me." Emma's answer was to bury her face in his neck and cry. But these were different tears than before. Not scared tears, not sad tears, happy tears. Catherine was crying too, dabbing at her eyes with her apron. "Ay Dios, about time this house had a child in it again." Nathaniel carried Emma inside and settled on the sofa in front of the fire. She curled against his chest like a small cat, and he realized he was still holding her like she might disappear if he let go. "There's something else," he said. "Your father had money, $5,000 hidden in his trunk. Judith took it, but the sheriff's recovering it. It's yours, Emma. Your inheritance." Emma's head came up. $5,000. "That's right. It'll be put in trust for you, for your future." But Judith said Papa died poor. She said we had nothing." "She lied about that too." Nathaniel brushed hair from Emma's face. "Your father provided for you, and I'm going to make sure that money's used the way he would have wanted for your education, your future, whatever you need." "I don't want money." Emma's voice was fierce. "I just want to stay here, with you and Catherine and Jack and everyone. I want this to be home." "It is home. Your home. For as long as you want it." Catherine brought hot chocolate, and Emma drank it slowly, her eyes starting to droop with exhaustion. It had been a long, emotional day. "Can I ask you something?" Emma's voice was sleepy. "When the papers are signed, and you're my real father, can I call you Papa?" Nathaniel's throat went tight. "I'd be honored if you called me Papa." "Good, because I think you're the best Papa I could have asked for." Emma yawned. "Even better than my first Papa. Don't tell him I said that." "Your secret's safe with me." Emma fell asleep right there in his arms, her hand clutching his shirt like she used to clutch that rag doll. Nathaniel sat in front of the fire long after Catherine went to bed, just holding his daughter and marveling at how much his life had changed in 24 hours. Yesterday, he'd been alone. Empty. Going through the motions of living without really being alive. Today, he had a daughter. A purpose. A reason to get up in the morning that went beyond ranch business and profit margins. Today, he had Emma. And he was never letting her go. The next morning, Emma woke to voices downstairs. Adult voices, unfamiliar and serious. Her heart jumped into her throat and she grabbed Molly, pressing the doll against her chest as fear washed over her in cold waves. They'd come to take her away. Someone from the law, or the orphanage, or worse, Judith had escaped and was here to drag her back into the cold. Emma's feet hit the floor before she'd fully decided to move. She crept to the door and opened it a crack, straining to hear. "Understand your position, Mr. Cross, but the Children's Aid Society has protocols." A woman's voice clipped and official. "We can't simply allow children to be placed without proper investigation." "Emma's not being placed. She's staying here." Nathaniel's voice was calm, but hard as iron. "We've been through this. Nevertheless, I'm required to inspect the home and interview the child. It's standard procedure in all custody cases." Emma's hands started shaking. Inspection. Interview. The same words the orphanage lady had used in Missouri before they tried to take Emma away from Papa the first time, right after Mama died. She couldn't go through that again. Couldn't answer questions and prove she deserved to be kept. Couldn't stand in front of strangers and beg for a home. But the thought of disappointing Nathaniel, of causing him trouble, was worse than the fear. Emma pulled on the dress Catherine had altered for her and crept down the stairs, Molly clutched tight in one hand. 3 people stood in the parlor with Nathaniel. A severe-looking woman in black, a younger man with a notebook, and Sheriff Morrison. The woman turned when Emma appeared, and her expression softened slightly. "You must be Emma." Emma nodded, her voice trapped somewhere in her chest. "I'm Miss Adelaide Warren from the Children's Aid Society. This is my assistant, Mr. Peters." The woman gestured to the young man. "We're here to make sure you're being properly cared for." "She is." Emma's voice came out stronger than she felt. "Mr. Cross takes good care of me." "I'm sure he does, but we still need to follow procedure." Miss Warren pulled out a folder. "Emma, would you mind answering some questions for me?" Nathaniel stepped forward. "Not without me present." "Mr. Cross, it's standard to interview children privately." "I don't care what standard. She's 8 years old, and she's been through hell. I'm not leaving her alone with strangers." Miss Warren's lips thinned. "Very well. Emma, come sit down." Emma perched on the edge of the sofa, Nathaniel beside her. Miss Warren sat across from them, and Mr. Peters opened his notebook. "Emma, can you tell me what happened with your stepmother?" The question hit like a fist. Emma's throat closed up and she couldn't get words out. Nathaniel's hand found hers. "It's all right, sweetheart. Just tell the truth." Emma took a shaky breath. "She left me on the prairie to die. Said I was dead weight and she didn't want me anymore." Mr. Peters scribbled frantically. Miss Warren's expression remained neutral. "And why do you think she did that?" "Because Papa died and she didn't love me. She only wanted Papa." Emma's voice cracked. "And when he was gone, she didn't need to pretend anymore." "Did Mrs. Hartley ever hurt you?" Emma nodded. "She hit me, with her hand and with a switch, and she wouldn't let me eat sometimes. Said I didn't deserve food if I couldn't be grateful." "How long did this go on?" "Since Papa got sick. The last few weeks were the worst, but she was always mean, even when Papa was alive." Miss Warren made a note. "And Mr. Cross found you on the prairie?" "Yes, ma'am. I was freezing and I thought I was going to die. Then he appeared and brought me here and gave me food and a bed and—" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "And he promised I could stay." "Do you want to stay here, Emma?" "More than anything." Emma looked up at Nathaniel. "He's good to me. He doesn't hit me or call me names or make me feel like I'm a burden. He makes me feel wanted." Something shifted in Miss Warren's expression. "Mr. Cross, may I see the child's accommodations?" Nathaniel led them upstairs to the yellow nursery. Emma followed, anxiety twisting her stomach. What if the room wasn't good enough? What if they decided Nathaniel couldn't provide proper care? Miss Warren stepped into the nursery and stopped. Her eyes swept over the carefully made bed, the books on the shelf, the warm quilts, the lace curtains. "This room, how long has it been prepared?" 10 years. Nathaniel's voice was quiet. "It was meant for my daughter. She died the day she was born." Understanding dawned on Miss Warren's face. "And you opened it for Emma?" "Yes, ma'am." Miss Warren walked to the window, looking out over the ranch. When she turned back, her severe expression had softened considerably. "Mr. Cross, I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've seen children in situations you wouldn't believe. Orphanages so crowded, kids sleep 3 to a bed. Foster homes where children are treated as unpaid labor. Adoptive parents who see children as property." She gestured around the room. "This is not that. This is a man who's given a traumatized child his dead daughter's room, who's fighting for her custody despite having no legal obligation, who clearly cares deeply for her welfare." "Does that mean—" Nathaniel started. "It means I'm recommending approval of your custody petition." Miss Warren closed her folder. "Pending the judge's ruling, of course. But my report will be favorable." Emma's knees went weak with relief. Nathaniel's hand tightened on her shoulder. "However," Miss Warren continued, "there is one complication." Emma's brief hope shattered. There was always a complication. Always a catch. "What complication?" Nathaniel's voice was wary. "You're a single man, Mr. Cross. The court generally prefers 2-parent households for female children, especially as they approach adolescence." Miss Warren's expression turned sympathetic. "I believe you're capable of raising Emma properly, but a judge might not agree. They might require a maternal figure in the home. Catherine's here. She's been like a mother. A housekeeper isn't the same as a mother, not in the eyes of the law." Miss Warren gathered her things. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cross. I'm just telling you what you're up against. The judge might rule that Emma needs a proper family, a married couple." After they left, Nathaniel stood in the parlor with his hands clenched and his jaw tight. Emma could practically see the thoughts racing through his head. "You could get married." The words tumbled out before Emma could stop them. Nathaniel looked at her startled. What? You could get married? Then we'd be a proper family, and the judge would let me stay. Emma twisted Molly's dress between her fingers. There must be someone in town who'd marry you. You're rich and nice and not ugly. Despite the tension, Nathaniel's lips twitched. Not ugly. High praise. I'm serious. Emma moved closer. I don't want to lose you because you're not married. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. But Emma, I can't just marry someone to satisfy a judge. Marriage is... He stopped, struggling for words. It's supposed to mean something. It did mean something with your first wife. But this would be different. This would be to keep me safe. Emma's voice dropped. Please, I'll be good. I'll help whoever you marry. I won't be trouble. Sweetheart, you're not trouble. You've never been trouble. Nathaniel pulled her into a hug. Let me think about this. Maybe there's another way. But over the next 3 days, it became clear there wasn't another way. Nathaniel's lawyer, Thornton, confirmed what Miss Warren had said. The judge would likely require a 2-parent household. And with Judith's trial approaching fast, they were running out of time. Emma watched Nathaniel pace the parlor on the 3rd evening, wearing a path in the carpet. Catherine brought him coffee he didn't drink. Jack offered suggestions that went nowhere. What about Mrs. Henderson? Jack suggested. The school teacher. She's widowed, respectable. She's 65 years old and has made it clear she's not interested in remarrying. Nathaniel ran his hands through his hair. I can't just walk up to a woman and propose a business arrangement. It's not right. What's not right is losing Emma because of some stupid law. Catherine set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. Senor Nathaniel, sometimes you have to do what's practical instead of what's proper. Marrying someone I don't love isn't practical. It's dishonest. Is it dishonest if both parties understand the arrangement? Catherine stood and crossed to stand in front of him. What if you married someone who also needed the protection of marriage? Someone who cared for Emma and wanted to help? Nathaniel stared at her. Catherine, what are you? I'm saying I would marry you. Catherine's voice was steady. Not for love, though I care for you deeply as a friend, but for Emma, to give her the family she deserves. The room went silent. Emma's heart started pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Catherine, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Catherine's eyes were fierce. I raised 6 children, senor. I know how to be a mother. And that child, she gestured to Emma, needs a mother. She needs someone to teach her things you can't. Someone to help her become a proper young woman. You'd give up your life for a legal arrangement. What life? Catherine's voice turned bitter. I'm a widow with grown children who barely write. I clean a house that's too big and cook for a man who doesn't taste his food. This isn't a life, senor. It's existing. She moved closer. But helping raise Emma, watching her grow and learn and become someone wonderful, that would be living. That would be purpose. Nathaniel looked at Emma. What do you think, sweetheart? Emma's throat was tight. I like Catherine. She's kind, and she teaches me things, and she sings Spanish songs when she thinks no one's listening. She looked at the older woman. Would you really want to be my mama? Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I would be honored to be your mama Nina. Then I think it's a good idea. Emma turned back to Nathaniel. If you're okay with it, I don't want you to be unhappy. I wouldn't be unhappy. Nathaniel spoke slowly, like he was working through the idea as he talked. Catherine's been my closest friend for a decade. I trust her completely. And she's right, you need a mother figure, someone who can teach you things I can't. So you'll do it. Jack looked between them. You'll actually marry, if Catherine's certain. Nathaniel met her eyes. Are you certain? Because once we do this, there's no going back. You'd be tied to me and Emma for life. I'm certain. Catherine didn't hesitate. When? As soon as possible, before the custody hearing. Nathaniel turned to Jack. Can you ride to town? Find out when the circuit judge is available for a wedding. Jack was already reaching for his hat. I'll be back before midnight. After he left, an awkward silence settled over the room. Emma looked between the two adults who were about to become her parents, not from love, but from necessity. It should have felt wrong, felt forced. But somehow it didn't. Catherine caught her looking and smiled. What is it, Nina? Are you scared? Terrified. Catherine laughed. But the best things in life are usually terrifying. Papa, I mean Mr. Cross, are you scared? Nathaniel crouched in front of Emma's chair. A little, but not of marrying Catherine. I'm scared I won't be a good enough father. Scared I'll fail you somehow. You won't. Emma threw her arms around his neck. You're already the best father I could ask for. We'll see if you still think that when I make you do chores and homework. Emma giggled, despite the seriousness of the situation. Then a thought struck her. Wait. If you marry Catherine, does that mean I should call her Mama now? Or Mrs. Cross? Or... Whatever feels right to you, Catherine said gently. There's no rush. Jack returned just before midnight with news that the circuit judge could perform the ceremony in 3 days. That gave them 72 hours to prepare for a wedding neither of them had ever planned on having. The house erupted into controlled chaos. Catherine needed a dress. Nathaniel needed new clothes that didn't smell like horses and cattle. Emma needed something suitable for witnessing a wedding. And somehow, it all had to happen without the entire town knowing this was a marriage of convenience. People will talk anyway, Jack pointed out on the second day as he helped Nathaniel into a new black suit. Widow housekeeper marrying her employer. They'll assume things. Let them assume. Nathaniel adjusted his collar. As long as the judge believes it's real, that's all that matters. But the night before the wedding, Emma found Nathaniel alone in his study, staring into the fire with a glass of whiskey in his hand. Papa. She used the word tentatively, still testing how it felt. Are you all right? Nathaniel looked up and attempted a smile. Come here, sweetheart. Emma climbed into the chair beside him. You're thinking about your first wife, Rebecca. How did you know? Because you get this look, like you're seeing something far away that makes you sad. Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. I loved her very much, and I promised her forever. Marrying Catherine feels like I'm breaking that promise. But Rebecca's gone. Emma's voice was gentle. And you're still here. You're allowed to keep living. When did you get so wise? I've been thinking about Mama a lot. My first Mama. Emma pulled Molly onto her lap. And I think she'd be happy I found you and Catherine. I think she'd want me to have a family again, even if it's not the same family. You think Rebecca would feel the same way? I think anyone who really loved you would want you to be happy. And to help people who need you. Emma looked at him seriously. Are you doing this just for me? Because if you really don't want to marry Catherine, I'm doing it for you, but also for me. Nathaniel set down his glass. Catherine's right. I've been existing, not living. And maybe this arrangement, maybe it's exactly what all three of us need. The wedding took place in the parlor on a cold February morning with Jack and 3 ranch hands as witnesses. Catherine wore a simple blue dress she'd sewn herself. Nathaniel wore his new black suit. Emma stood between them in a white dress with yellow ribbons holding both their hands. The judge was a portly man named Harrison, who'd known Nathaniel for years. He kept the ceremony brief and efficient, but there was warmth in his voice when he spoke about the importance of family and commitment. Do you, Nathaniel Cross, take Catherine Martinez as your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Catherine Martinez, take Nathaniel Cross as your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the Montana Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. Judge Harrison smiled. You may kiss the bride." Nathaniel hesitated for just a moment, then leaned forward and kissed Catherine gently on the cheek. It was chaste and respectful, more like kissing a sister than a wife, but it was real. They were married. Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Happy tears this time. Catherine was her mama now. Nathaniel was her papa. They were a family, a real legal official family. Judge Harrison produced the marriage certificate, and they all signed Nathaniel in bold letters. Catherine in careful script, and Emma in the wobbly handwriting of a child who was still learning. "Congratulations." Harrison shook Nathaniel's hand. "Now about the custody hearing. It's scheduled for next week, but given this development, I'm inclined to approve the petition immediately." Nathaniel's hand tightened on Emma's shoulder. "Immediately? You're now a married man with a stable home and a wife who's experienced in raising children. Mrs. Blake is in jail awaiting trial for abandonment and theft. There's no contest." Harrison pulled out another document. "I can finalize the adoption right now if you'd like." "Yes." Nathaniel didn't hesitate. "Please." Harrison filled out the paperwork with efficient strokes, asking questions about Emma's full name, date of birth, and parentage. When he finished, he handed the pen to Nathaniel. "Sign here, and here. Mrs. Cross, you'll need to sign as well." Catherine signed beside Nathaniel's signature, her hand shaking slightly. "And Emma." Harrison turned to her. "This is your new birth certificate. It lists Nathaniel and Catherine Cross as your legal parents. Do you understand what that means?" Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "It means you're theirs, completely and legally. No one can ever take you away from them." Harrison's expression softened. "You're Emma Cross now. How does that feel?" "Like coming home." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "It feels like coming home." Harrison stamped the documents with his official seal. "Then it's done. Emma Cross, daughter of Nathaniel, and Catherine Cross. Congratulations to all of you." After Harrison left, the three of them stood in the parlor looking at each other. A family, not born from love or blood, but from choice and necessity, and a desperate child's need for safety. But it was real, and it was theirs. "So," Jack said from the doorway, grinning, "who wants wedding cake Catherine made 3 layers?" They gathered in the kitchen, and Jack produced a beautiful cake with white frosting and sugar flowers. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd had cake. Maybe her 6th birthday before Mama got sick. "Make a wish," Catherine said, handing her a knife. "The first slice is yours." Emma closed her eyes and wished hard, not for toys or pretty things, just for this moment to last, for this family to stay together, for no one to ever take it away. When she opened her eyes, Nathaniel and Catherine were watching her with matching expressions of tenderness. "What did you wish for?" Nathaniel asked. "Can't tell. Won't come true." Emma cut into the cake, revealing layers of vanilla and strawberry. "But I think it already did." They ate cake and talked about mundane things, ranch business, what to plant in the garden come spring, whether Emma needed a new winter coat. Normal family conversation, the kind Emma had been starving for without even knowing it. Later, after the ranch hands had congratulated them and left and the dishes were washed and put away, Emma found herself alone with Catherine in the kitchen. "Mama. Catherine?" The name felt strange, but right on her tongue. "Can I ask you something? Anything, Nina. Do you think you'll ever love Papa, like a real wife loves a husband?" Catherine considered the question seriously. "I already love him in my way, as a friend and a man I respect deeply. Whether that will grow into romantic love?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I promise you this, I will be a good wife to him and a good mother to you. That's not nothing. It's everything." Emma hugged her fiercely. "Thank you for wanting me. Thank you for making us a real family." Catherine's arms tightened around her. "Thank you for giving me a purpose again, for reminding me what it feels like to be needed." That night, Emma lay in her yellow room and listened to the sounds of the house settling. Footsteps in the hallway, Catherine moving into the main bedroom with Nathaniel. Quiet voices talking too low to hear. The creak of floorboards. Her parents. Her home. Her family. Emma clutched Molly and whispered into the darkness. "We made it. We're safe now. We have a mama and a papa, and we're never going to be alone again." Molly's one-button eye stared back at her, and Emma imagined the doll was smiling. Downstairs, Nathaniel and Catherine sat in the study with the adoption papers spread between them. "You think we did the right thing?" Nathaniel asked quietly. "I think we did the only thing." Catherine touched the document that legally made Emma their daughter. "That child needed us, both of us, and we needed her. I never thought I'd marry again, never thought I'd have a daughter. Life doesn't always give us what we expect. Sometimes it gives us what we need instead." Catherine stood. "I should check on Emma." She climbed the stairs and peeked into the yellow nursery. Emma was asleep. Molly clutched in her arms, a small smile on her face. Catherine felt her heart swell. She'd raised 6 children of her own, loved them, and sent them into the world. She'd thought that part of her life was over. But standing here looking at this child who'd been thrown away and was now sleeping safe and warm, Catherine realized some things were never truly over. Some things were just beginning. She pulled the quilts higher around Emma's shoulders and whispered, "Sleep well, mijija. You're home now. Really home." And Emma, dreaming of horses and books and parents who wanted her, smiled in her sleep. 3 weeks after the adoption became official, Emma woke to shouting downstairs. Not angry shouting, excited shouting. She threw on her robe and ran to the stairs, her heart pounding with hope instead of fear for the first time in her life. Jack stood in the front hall covered in snow and grinning like a madman. "Boss Catherine, you need to see this." Nathaniel emerged from the study, Catherine right behind him. "Jack, what in God's name?" "The wagon. We found it." Jack's grin got wider. "Everything's still there. The money, Emma's father's belongings, all of it. Judith and Blake never got a chance to spend any of it." Emma's breath caught. Papa's things. Things she thought were lost forever. Catherine's hand found Emma's shoulder. "Where?" "Abandoned 20 miles north. Sheriff Morrison impounded it as evidence for the trial." Jack pulled an envelope from his coat. But he released Emma's personal items. Said they belonged to her now. Nathaniel took the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside were papers, a deed to land in Oregon, that Richard Hartley had never reached a certificate for $5,000 in gold, and a smaller envelope addressed in fading ink. "For my Emma Rose," Nathaniel read aloud. "In the event of my death." Emma's hands shook as she took the letter. Papa's handwriting. Papa's words. She broke the seal with trembling fingers and unfolded the paper. "My dearest girl." She read, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you're reading this, then I've gone to be with your mama. I'm sorry I had to leave you. Sorry I won't see you grow up and marry and have babies of your own." Tears blurred the words, but Emma kept reading. "I know Judith isn't kind to you. I see it even though I pretend not to. I was a coward and a fool to marry her thinking she'd learn to love you like I do. But money makes people do foolish things, and I was running out of time." Emma looked up at Nathaniel confused. "What does that mean? Keep reading, sweetheart." "The doctor in Missouri gave me 6 months. Consumption same as took your mama. I didn't want you to know, didn't want you to be scared. So I married Judith thinking she'd take care of you when I was gone. But I also hid money, our real money, not the few dollars Judith knew about. $5,000 from selling your grandparents' farm." Emma's voice cracked. "I want you to use it for a good life, Emma Rose. For education and a home, and whatever makes you happy. Don't let anyone tell you you're not worthy of good things. You're my greatest treasure, and I loved you more than my own life." The letter ended with, "Your devoted Papa Richard Hartley." Emma pressed the paper to her chest and sobbed. Papa had known. Had known Judith was cruel and had tried to protect her anyway. Had loved her enough to plan for a future he wouldn't see. Catherine pulled her into a hug. He loved you very much, Nina. He did. Nathaniel's voice was rough. And he'd be glad to know you're safe now, that you found people who love you too. Jack cleared his throat. There's more. The sheriff recovered some other items, personal things. He pulled a small wooden box from his coat. Thought you might want these. Emma opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a locket with a tiny painting of a young woman mama, a man's pocket watch that must have been Papa's, and a bundle of letters tied with ribbon all addressed to "My dearest Emma" in Papa's handwriting. He wrote me letters. Emma's voice was awed. Looks like he wrote one for every birthday until you turn 18. Nathaniel pointed to the dates on each envelope. Planned to give them to you as you grew up. Emma clutched the box like it was made of gold. Papa's voice, Papa's love, preserved in ink and paper waiting for her all this time. Can I read them all now? Take your time, sweetheart. They're yours. Nathaniel kissed her forehead. We'll be here when you're ready. Emma spent the rest of the day in her yellow room reading Papa's letters one by one. He wrote about Mama, about their courtship and marriage, and how happy they'd been. About Emma's birth, and how she'd been the most beautiful baby he'd ever seen. About his hopes for her future, that she'd be educated and independent and brave. The last letter, meant for her 18th birthday, made Emma cry so hard she couldn't breathe. By now, you're a young woman, probably too grown up to want advice from your old Papa. But I hope you remember this. You were loved. Completely and unconditionally loved. Your mama and I brought you into this world because we wanted you, and every moment with you was a gift. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. You're everything, Emma Rose. Everything good and bright and wonderful in this world. Catherine found her hours later surrounded by letters and crying into Molly's threadbare dress. Oh, Nina. Catherine sat on the bed and gathered Emma into her arms. Talk to me. I miss him. Emma's voice was muffled against Catherine's shoulder. I know I have you and Papa Nathaniel now, and I'm so grateful, but I still miss my first Papa. Does that make me ungrateful? No, mija. That makes you human. Catherine stroked her hair. You can love us and still miss him. Love isn't a limited resource. You have room in your heart for all of us. Mama, Catherine. Emma pulled back to look at her. Do you think my first Papa would be happy I call Nathaniel Papa now? I think your father would be relieved and grateful that you found someone who loves you as much as he did. Catherine wiped Emma's tears. Love isn't about replacing people. It's about adding to what we already have. That evening, Emma asked Nathaniel if they could visit the place where he'd found her. She needed to see it. Needed to understand how close she'd come to dying and how far she'd traveled since then. They rode out on Buttercup. Emma seated in front of Nathaniel, wrapped in a warm coat Catherine had sewn. The prairie was still covered in snow, but spring was coming. Emma could smell it in the air. There. Nathaniel pointed to a spot near a cluster of rocks. That's where you were. Emma slid down from the horse and walked to the place. The snow had melted and refrozen dozens of times since that day, erasing any trace of her presence. But she could still remember the cold, the fear, the certainty that she was going to die alone. I thought I'd never be warm again, she said quietly. I thought the cold was all there was. Nathaniel dismounted and stood beside her. But it wasn't. No. Emma looked up at him. You came. You saved me. We saved each other, sweetheart. Nathaniel's voice was thick with emotion. I was freezing too in my own way. Just as lost and alone as you were. Emma took his hand. Are you still cold? Not anymore. Nathaniel squeezed her fingers. Not with you and Catherine filling the house with life again. They stood together in the place where Emma's old life had ended and her new one had begun, and Emma felt something shift in her chest. The fear that had lived there since Mama died finally loosened its grip. She was safe. She was loved. She was home. 2 months later, spring arrived in full force, and with it came news that made Emma's blood run cold. Jack rode in from town with a newspaper, his face grim. Boss, you need to see this. The headline read, Judith Blake escapes during transport to trial. Emma's hands went numb. She escaped. Nathaniel scanned the article quickly. Says she overpowered a deputy during transport to the territorial prison, disappeared into the wilderness. They're searching, but she's coming here. Emma's voice was flat with certainty. She's coming for me. She wouldn't dare. Catherine pulled Emma close. The whole territory's looking for her. She'd be a fool to... She's not coming for me out of love. Emma interrupted. She's coming because I ruined her plans. Because I'm the reason she's facing prison. She wants revenge. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Then we'll be ready. Jack, gather the men. I want armed guards around the house at all times. No one gets onto this property without my knowledge. The next week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Emma couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every shadow looked like Judith. Every sound outside made her jump. Catherine tried to distract her with lessons and cooking, but Emma's mind wouldn't settle. She kept waiting for Judith to appear to drag her back into the cold and darkness. On the 8th night, Emma woke to the smell of smoke. She bolted upright, her heart racing. Through her window, she could see orange flames licking at the barn. "Fire!" Emma screamed, running into the hallway. "Papa, Mama, the barn's on fire!" Nathaniel was already moving, pulling on boots and grabbing his coat. "Catherine, keep Emma inside. Jack, get the men." "No." Emma grabbed Nathaniel's arm. "It's her. It's Judith. I know it is." "All the more reason you stay here where it's safe." But Emma had learned something in her 8 years of life. Sometimes safety meant fighting, not hiding. She pulled on her boots and ran outside before anyone could stop her. The barn was fully engulfed, flames shooting into the night sky. Ranch hands were already forming a bucket brigade from the well, but it was clear they were losing the battle. "The horses!" Emma screamed. "Buttercup's in there!" Nathaniel's face went white. "No, Emma, don't." But Emma was already running toward the barn. She could hear the horses screaming inside, could smell burning hay and wood. Buttercup was in there, her horse, her friend. She wasn't leaving her to burn. Emma burst through the barn door into hell itself. Smoke filled her lungs immediately. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe. But she could hear Buttercup's terrified whinnies coming from the back stalls. "I'm coming." Emma dropped to her hands and knees where the smoke was thinner and crawled toward the sound. Heat pressed down on her from above. The crackle of flames was deafening. She found Buttercup's stall and yanked the door open. The mare was wild with fear, rearing and kicking. "It's okay, girl. It's me." Emma grabbed Buttercup's mane and hauled herself onto the horse's back. "We're getting out of here." She kicked her heels into Buttercup's sides, and the terrified mare bolted toward the door. They burst out of the barn into the cool night air, just as part of the roof collapsed behind them. Nathaniel caught Buttercup's bridle, his face a mask of terror and fury. Emma rose cross. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking I'm not losing anyone else I love." Emma coughed, her lungs burning. "Not even a horse." Catherine appeared and pulled Emma down from Buttercup, checking her for burns. "Reckless, foolish child, you could have died." "But I didn't." Emma's eyes were streaming from the smoke. "And neither did Buttercup." A slow clap came from the shadows near the house. Everyone turned. Judith stepped into the firelight, a gun in her hand and madness in her eyes. Her dress was torn, her hair wild. She looked like something that had crawled out of hell itself. "Touching." Judith said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "The brave little girl saving her precious horse. How noble." Nathaniel stepped in front of Emma. "Put the gun down, Judith." "Or what? You'll have your men shoot me. Go ahead. I'm a dead woman anyway." Judith's laugh was unhinged. "Prison or bullet, what's the difference?" "Why are you here?" Emma's voice was surprisingly steady. "Why do you think—" Judith's eyes locked on her. "You destroyed my life, you little brat. I had everything planned, new husband, new life, money to start over. And you ruined it. You and your pathetic sob story. I told the truth. The truth. Judith spat the word. Your truth got me arrested. Got me branded a monster. Cost me everything. You did that yourself when you left me to die. Emma stepped out from behind Nathaniel, ignoring his attempt to pull her back. I didn't make you cruel. I didn't make you abandon a child. You chose that. I chose survival. Judith's hand shook on the gun. Your father lied to me about everything. I gave up a good position as a seamstress to marry him. And what did I get? A dying man and his worthless daughter. I was owed that money. The money was Papa's, Emma said. And he left it to me, not you. So you're rich now, is that it? Living in this big house with your new family while I rot? Judith raised the gun, pointing it directly at Emma. Well, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Time seemed to slow. Emma saw Nathaniel lunge forward, saw Jack raising his rifle, saw Catherine's horrified face. But Emma didn't move, didn't flinch. Go ahead, she said quietly. Pull the trigger. Kill me. Emma, no. Nathaniel's voice was anguished. But know this. Emma continued, her eyes locked on Judith's. If you kill me, it won't change anything. You'll still be a woman who abandoned a child. Still be cruel and hateful and empty. And I'll still have won. Judith's finger tightened on the trigger. Won. How did you win? Because I found people who love me. Real love, not the fake kind you pretended with Papa. I have a family now, a home, a future. Emma's voice was strong and clear. You took everything from me once, but I got it all back and more. You can't take that away. Even if you kill me, you can't take away the fact that I was loved. Something cracked in Judith's expression. The gun wavered. I could have loved you, she whispered, and for just a moment, Emma saw something human beneath the madness. If your father had been honest, if things had been different, I could have... No, you couldn't. Emma's voice was gentle now. Because love isn't something you do when circumstances are perfect. Love is choosing someone even when things are hard. And you never chose me. Not once. The gun lowered slowly. Judith's shoulders sagged. I didn't know how. I know. Emma took a cautious step forward, and I'm sorry for that. Sorry you never learned. Jack and two ranch hands moved in quickly, disarming Judith and restraining her. She didn't fight, just stood there with tears streaming down her face, looking lost and broken. Sheriff Morrison arrived minutes later with a posse. Got word she was spotted heading this way. Looks like we're too late for the excitement. She's all yours, Sheriff. Nathaniel kept his arm around Emma. And this time, make sure she actually gets to trial. As they led Judith away, she looked back at Emma one last time. Did he really leave you all that money, your father? Yes. Then he loved you more than he ever loved me. Judith's voice was hollow. Lucky you. It wasn't luck, Emma said. It was him choosing to love someone even when it was hard. That's what real parents do. After Judith was gone and the barn fire was finally out, the Cross family stood together in the front yard, watching the sun rise over the prairie. You scared 10 years off my life, Nathaniel said, his voice still shaky. Running into that burning barn like that? I'm sorry, Papa, but I couldn't let Buttercup die. I understand. But Emma... He turned her to face him. You're more important than any horse, more important than any building or possession. You understand that your life matters more than anything. I know. Emma hugged him tight. But sometimes the things we love are worth fighting for. You taught me that. Catherine wrapped her arms around both of them. My brave, reckless, wonderful girl. What are we going to do with you? Love me, Emma suggested. Even when I'm reckless, especially when you're reckless. Catherine kissed the top of her head. Though I'd prefer if the recklessness didn't involve burning buildings. Jack appeared with Buttercup, the mare cleaned up, and munching contentedly on an apple. She's fine. Not a scratch on her thanks to this one's quick thinking. He nodded at Emma. You've got guts, kid. Your papa would be proud. Which one? Emma asked. Both of them. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of the new barn, rebuilt bigger and better than before, and watched as workers finished installing the sign above the door. Cross Family Ranch, it read. Est, 1873. Not just Nathaniel's ranch anymore. The family's ranch. Emma's ranch, too. What do you think? Nathaniel asked, coming to stand beside her. I think it's perfect. Emma looked up at him. Papa, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think you could ever have kids of your own? Real kids with Mama Catherine? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Emma, you are my real kid. Blood doesn't make someone real. Love does. I know. But would you want more brothers or sisters for me? Would you want that? Emma considered. Maybe, if they were as lucky as me. If they got to grow up here with you and Mama Catherine teaching them that family is about choosing each other. Then maybe someday, Nathaniel smiled. But for now, you're more than enough family for me. Catherine called from the house that dinner was ready, and Emma ran toward the sound of her voice, toward the warm lights in the windows, toward home. She'd been abandoned on a frozen prairie, left to die by someone who should have protected her. She'd lost her first parents to sickness and cruelty. She'd learned at 8 years old that the world could be cold and hard and merciless. But she'd also learned that the world held people like Nathaniel Cross, who saw a dying child and chose to fight for her. People like Catherine Martinez, who offered herself as a mother to a girl who wasn't hers by blood. People like Jack Coleman, who rode through the night to find a lawyer because a little girl deserved a family. Emma had learned that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about people who showed up when you needed them, who fought for you when you couldn't fight for yourself, who chose to love you even when, especially when you came with baggage and trauma and complications. She'd learned that being abandoned didn't mean being unloved. It just meant the wrong people had left so the right people could find her. And as Emma ran into the house where Nathaniel and Catherine waited, where her room was warm and her dinner was ready and her future stretched bright ahead of her, she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. She was Emma Rose Cross, daughter of 2 families, survivor of the cold keeper of her father's letters and her mother's doll, and her own fierce, unbreakable heart. She was home. Finally, completely forever home. And nothing and no one would ever take that away from her again.